afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. Here on this Wednesday, October the 16th, the Michigan bye week is over. We're just a couple days away from the Wolverines hitting the field again on the road, start the second half against Illinois. Probably things you are fully aware of. So let's get you into what we'll be talking about here today. I'll give you some keys on how I'm thinking about things for Michigan to win at Illinois this Saturday. Also, I will look ahead to the rest of the second half and outline success for the Maize and Blue. We'll start with the injury updates, at least where I'm at right now, as far as I can determine what's going to happen when the two top 25 teams clash in Champaign. Number 24, Michigan at number 22, Illinois. It's a 3-point line right now, with Michigan being the favorite, -3. Now, Miles Hinton did not play against Washington. I thought he was going to play. He did not. And it was Jeff Percy who got the start at left tackle. Dom Jadis also wasn't in there against the Huskies, and Greg Crippen filled in at center. Derek Moore did not play. You need to follow it slowly. The week before, Josiah Stewart did not play, but then Stewart came back, and then Moore's down, and you had the assistants this week, and today Esposito said that there is a chance for Derek Moore to play on Saturday. He, quote unquote, did some stuff. Oh, I don't know. That, when you start saying it did some stuff and he's got a chance and he's working, so whatever it is, I think we could all agree when we start talking about what's going to happen on Saturday. If Michigan could get both Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore, their outstanding edge linebackers, both out there, Michigan's going to have a better chance to win the game against the Fighting Illini. I think that's pretty easy. I've noticed there's a lot of complaining about everything with going on with Michigan, and understandable. You thought one thing heading into the season. Now here you sit at the halfway point, and you're like, "This is bad. This is bad." I think people are tired of talking about the quarterback position. Michigan has a quarterback position. It was like a lot of the years when with Harbaugh before he started winning. It's like, oh man, Michigan had a Ohio State problem. They couldn't beat Ohio State. I agreed with that when I would say, yeah, the end of the season. They also had some bowl game issues in there that they weren't winning. So it wasn't just an Ohio State, but people that wanted to correct me and say, no, Harbaugh, what he has is a Ohio State problem. I said, okay. What Michigan has is a quarterback problem. And so complaining on and on about the wide receivers that are totally dependent on the quarterback doesn't make sense to me. But look, if I was at a game and I was able to watch the whole field and I was looking at wide receivers and I didn't think they were getting open, and I would say, if they did a better job either recruiting or route running or getting coached, then those guys would be available for the quarterback, and they're part of the problem. I don't know that. They might be part of the problem. Sharon Moore has mentioned that he needs to see better route running from his wideouts, but I'm not really feeling that as much. If I was going to say, like, it all could work together, which I'm going to get to, the offensive line could really help out. The quarterback could really help out Jack Tuttle this week by pass blocking for him. They do a nice job run blocking, and having a running game, that's going to be a quarterback's best friend. Being able to, we say keep him upright, being able to give him some time to throw the ball, that is going to help too. Very simple things. The offensive line, I could say if you could Give Tuttle some time to throw the ball. To me, that's going to be a big deal. So let's look at some of the keys for success on Saturday. One, I'm just looking for a decent passing game. It was a little bit amazing watching the first 3 series that Tuttle played, 2 towards the end of the half at Washington, and then he had a touchdown drive coming out of the 3-quarter, but the 3 coming out of the 3rd quarter, but 3 straight drives, he went touchdown, field goal, and touchdown, and it was like the sky had opened up and it was blue. It was like, oh my gosh, what is this? Well, then he went with then he had 2 out of 3. No, then he had 2 straight 3-and-outs and a fumble and interception, which not so hot on the next 4 series, but those first 3 he was great. And then the last 4, I don't want to say he was terrible on all those. A fumble and interception, I'll put those in the terrible category. The 1 3-and-out, Dono slipped and Klein got bear hugged. I mean, so I can't say that was terrible. 3-and-outs are, they're not good. That can also help out the defense. Like a good passing game is going to elevate everyone. It's going to help out the running game. A good running game, because those things work in tandem. They can help out the passing game, but hey, you get the passing game going. That's helping out everything. It's helping out the defense. It's going to get you in a better situation if you want to flip the field when you're talking about special teams and all of that. I'm not asking for Michigan to go out there and, to have to be the number 1 passing team. Or I watched, just like everyone else, Oregon and Ohio State. And part of it, you're watching, you're like, man, there's a lot of explosive offensive plays out there. I mean, just all over the place. I mean, there's amazing talent. And then you're, comparing that to Michigan. So like Michigan, this is night and day. Michigan doesn't have to have the explosive offensive plays. It's nice to have explosive plays. Most of them, all of them actually have come via the run. But the point there is that I'm just looking for a decent passing game, because right now, and again, this goes back to, I think people are not only tired of it and bored of banging on the quarterbacks, it's become like, leave them alone kind of thing. You're a Michigan fan. It's like, all right, we get it. The passing game has been bad. You look at the numbers, passing yards per game. There are 133 teams in college football. Michigan ranks 131. And passing yards per game, 115 per. Only Army and Navy have fewer passing yards per game. Now, if you want to argue that by looking at the Michigan game notes, I was double checking, and the game notes had Michigan at 129, although they did have them at 115 per. So I looked at it, and there's the team below them or above them. They look like they're 130 to me. So that's all right. I mean, they're down there towards the bottom. And so a decent is just, 200 yards passing, getting close to that, getting them. I don't even know if they need to be in the upper third, but getting out of the back half and down towards the bottom, it's going to help everything with this team. So that's just number 1. And I'm keeping it simple. I'm not going to rip off 20 different things that Michigan needs. In fact, I'm just going to give you 2 for Saturday. They need a decent passing attack, and that is going to help out everything with this team. I feel like, this is, if you told me that this is going to be a tough game, Michigan could definitely lose this one, I would say you're right. You could also say, Michigan, this is a winnable game for them. They're a 3-point favorite. You're right. So this is a game that everything that we've seen from them, where can the improvements come? It can happen in the passing game. And that is going to help out all of the other things that you look at. Now, my second thing, I've just got 2 keys for you for this game. The other thing, I'm looking for low turnovers. If I try to get in here and say, no turnovers, Michigan can't turn the ball over, Yeah, you can. I mean, you can turn the ball over. I would suggest not doing it early on. I know how the people that I would be watching the game with would be like, let's say, the first or second series of Michigan threw an interception. You'd feel like, here we go again. This season's over. People like to say, let's go start the lawnmower. Let's go rake the leaves. I mean, all those kind of things people would be saying. So, but you still can turn the ball over. It's still football. It can happen. You can have a tip pass. And so saying 0 turnovers with this team, I'm not sure that you go from, it's something that you definitely want to do. You want to be able to protect the ball along with the quarterbacks who are mostly responsible for turning it over. That's why Michigan is in the situation that they are. And the situation that they are is one that it's a lot of it looks dire in the second half. And so, fewer turnovers. And the turnovers is also something that you look through the stats through halfway through the season. Is Michigan, they have lost 12. They've thrown 9 interceptions and they fumbled it 3 times. That puts them 115 out of 133. Remember, Michigan was number 1 last year, championship season. This tells you a lot about the predicament that Michigan is at. If we just looked at, if you looked at the passing offense, if we didn't know anything else about it, we just parachuted in and said Michigan was 130 in passing and 115 in turnovers lost, you might think they even have a worse record than they do. And I think you can understand why people would say that. So that's it. That's what I am looking for coming up on Saturday. A competent passing game is going to help everything. It's going to help your wide receivers that people are tired of complaining about the quarterback, and they're complaining about the wide receivers. The running game is good, but the running game will even be better. Those things work. If you're passing the ball, they can't just load up on the run. Now, the offensive line can do the quarterbacks a nice solid by doing the job. They've been doing it in the run game. Maybe the thing to watch is that if Hinton is back, Percy could get the start at right tackle. Evan Link has started every game at right tackle, but he has not been good in pass protection, and Percy did all right against Washington. It makes sense, I think, to all of us who's watching it. We're not sitting there in practice and being able to evaluate it, but just watching it and looking at the numbers and watching it for the game, it makes sense if Hinton is ready to go, that Percy would be the starting right tackle. But a decent offense is going to help this Michigan defense more than anything. I'm not over here trying to take up for Wink Martindale or the defense overall or anything. I still think that the defense seems too complicated for these players. I don't know if it's misaligned, or when I hear Makari Page talking about, well, we've just had to work on our angles and our fundamentals. I just think that you're midway through the season. This is the system has been in this particular system, and so I do think that they could be helped out by an offense that is scoring some points and possessing the ball a little bit and not having so many 3 and outs. So that's the way I'm looking at it, and that's the way that I see it. Now, the passing defense, I just talked about Michigan's passing offense. It's surprising that Michigan has allowed only Northwestern and UCLA have allowed more yards via the pass than Michigan. And I thought Purdue and Northwestern last week were the worst teams in the Big Ten. I think Northwestern is. Purdue was able to score, was it whatever it was in overtime, 33, 32, something like that. They're able to put up 30-plus points on Illinois. Was it 40 or 30? A lot. And that was surprising to me. But the point here is that you have Michigan giving up 259, almost 260 yards through the air, which ranks them 110 out of 133 in the country. And again, only the Wildcats and Bruins in the Big Ten allowing more yards. That's not a good sign for Michigan. I'm sorry. Purdue scored 49 points. You get into overtime. All of a sudden, it was. I remember last week I checked the score of the Illinois Purdue game because I had picked Illinois minus 22.5, and it was 27-3 at the start of the third quarter. And I was ready. Oh, let's cash this ticket. What a pick by me. What a great pick. And then later on, I look and I see that Illinois won by 50-49. Not so hot. Not such a great pick by me. That'd have been a nice money line selection at that point. If if you made that bet, you always think about things like that. I want to take some of the feedback and see where people are at. I've just spilled everything that I'm thinking about. I've got the two keys. I'll look towards the rest of the season, and I'll just see what you guys think. And we start with Andres. He says, I don't understand. When you look across the landscape, there are plenty of teams who have the ability to throw the ball effectively, not with 5 stars littered outside or the quarterback. Just effective scheming and repetition. Why can't Michigan seem to get that? It's a real head scratcher to me. It's funny. I was scratching my head as I was reading that. Yeah. Oh, why is it? I would say overall that it comes back to Sharon Moore and Kirk Campbell. They were indecisive at the quarterback position. You can go back and look if you're somebody that watches the YouTube or listens to the podcast. Just like everyone was excited about the season, but then the Monday came and Sharon Moore got up there and he didn't know who was going to be his starters. He went into game week and he's like, man, it could be Orji, it could be Warren. We're going to let it compete this week. I didn't like that. There's some people that were like, oh, hey, give the coach a sure. We're giving the opportunity. To me, that showed he was being indecisive. Same thing at center. Same thing with his entire secondaries he went through. The season was starting. He didn't have the luxury that Jim Harbaugh had the previous 2 years of playing no one and having the experience of coaching in the NFL and everything else. This guy's a rookie head coach, and he's out there, and he was playing games. So I think that's part of it, that they went in, and however they judge them, I think that the real head scratcher to me is I get watching Davis Warren in some shell drills, wearing an orange jersey, throwing the ball around. If I was there and watching him throw, you could say, man, this guy can make all of the throws. Look at him. He's on the opposite hash. He's throwing it across the – man, he's got a pro arm. He can make all the throws. Man, he's got a nice deep ball. We even saw that in the spring game when he made that 55-yard pass. So I could see how they would be like, man, we really got something with Davis Warren. But then when you put him into a real game where they could hit him, everything sped up for him, and it was too much for him. The solution to that is, hit the quarterback in practice. I don't know. That's a tough one to go about. The tough one for me, the head scratcher, is Orji. And I asked myself, Sharon Moore, you something along the lines of, hey, Sharon, you've seen Orji make a lot of plays in the passing game in the fall and in the spring. And he's like, absolutely. He said he's made a lot of plays. So I don't know. I can't see it myself. Orji being in a practice situation where he's just dotting the I and he's going through the progressions and he's putting the ball on the money, or the money, hitting the spots all the time, because he hasn't done that ever. And now we've watched him throw the ball a lot, and he wasn't ever able to do it. So that, to me, is the real head scratcher. The other part with Orji is that if you're going to be, and we all knew that he wasn't going to be like, a completion percentage like J.J. McCarthy, we thought that he was going to be a real dangerous runner. Like he was going to be like Denard Robinson, something like that. If you can't really throw, great. You better be a great runner. And I don't know. I don't want to come with an average runner, be like on a mid runner. I haven't seen anything. He's good getting a yard or two. He'd be a good fullback, good H-back kind of thing, because he's tough to bring down in a phone booth. He'll drag guys a yard or two. We see him. He's strong. And that's the whole thing about the off season. People ask me, boy, you really like Michigan this year. Look at you now. And I say, yeah, why did you? Then they say, well, why did you think that? And I say, well, you had Alex Orji, who, when they have their performance indicators, every time you heard the coaches talk, they'd say, Alex Orji's stronger than everybody. He does everything better than anybody who's ever played Michigan football with his key performance indicators. This is, whatever he's doing in the weight room and all the other drills and things that they put him through. Like, he was like the most special athlete ever at Michigan since they've been tracking it all. To me, and then we hadn't seen him throw the ball. We're thinking, so okay, he only has to do okay throwing the ball. He's going to be like Jalen Hurts when he has the ball in his hand. And it wasn't like that. So to me, that's it. And yeah, you want to talk about scheming them up. When you turn the ball over, it's like in baseball when you don't hit. Every time, all the years that I covered baseball and the team wouldn't hit, people would call up and say, this team is just going through the motions. They look like they don't care. That's what happens when you don't hit in baseball. People think that you don't care and you're just going through the motions. When you're turning the ball over in football, everything looks a mess. It hurts the defense, puts them in a bad spot. Coaches look bad. Everything is going on, gets in their head. And this team's turned the ball over. That's what they're known for in the first half. They were known for turning the ball over and not being able to throw it. So, yeah, it is a head scratcher. And if there was any defense for them, when they went through the spring, they thought, and they had the opportunity to look at some other guys. They all got together in the meeting rooms. They said, we like Tuttle better than anybody else that we're going to bring in. And Warren, isn't half bad. Look at the way he throws the ball. And I don't know, however they evaluated Orji, it didn't work. So what else can you say about that? I think I've said everything about it. So there it is. Aaron, Illinois has the same kind of field as Washington. I hope we bring the right cleats this time. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't like I guess Sherrone Moore didn't want to throw anyone under the bus, maybe including himself, because he was asked specifically about the cleats and he didn't have an answer. Yeah, he just walked around. He just worked around that question. I'd have liked to have known the answer. Like, maybe I would have liked to have known if Jair Hill and Donovan Edwards thought, I'm going to go with a shorter cleat on this field. And those were the only two. And they made that decision. I would think that it would be coming down to the players' comfortability and how they feel when they get out. They have an opportunity. It's not like they hit the field for the first time. They're like, whoa, this thing. They go out and they go through the pregame and then they decide how many of their shoes that they're bringing, or if they're just bringing one shoe and then they have the ability to take the cleat off. I would say that it would be on the player. So this part about, I hope I bring the right cleats. I don't think they're bringing, 20 or 30 pairs. I don't know this for sure. Again, this is my guess, but you have the ability as the player. So this going on the coach or this going on the equipment staff, this goes on the player, and the player's the ones that are slipping. If the player goes out there and he's slipping in the pregame and he's like, I'm just going to go with these, that's on him. Now, maybe you have I don't know how to say, a comeback. Maybe I'm missing the point here. But I also didn't like Sherrone Moore kind of evading that question. Why didn't he just say, yeah, those guys picked the wrong cleats? Yeah, those guys went with a little shorter one. And everybody else picked the longer one. Or it was just one of those things. So, but it jumped out. A-Train says he doesn't know about turnovers. Tuttle is known for turnovers, especially at Indiana. Well, Tuttle, when I saw him in the spring game, not this last spring, he wasn't available, but he played in the previous spring. Him and Warren were both turning it over. So, yeah, I hear you. That's why I think a lot of people don't have great confidence in Michigan in the second half and are looking at 7-5 as I don't know about something you would take right now. I think people might take an 8-4 right now, but JJ McCarthy's not walking through that door, and these are the quarterbacks that they have. So, right, that's why they would do well. They would do well to go out there and just have a game where they have a decent performance passing the ball, just so we don't. Everybody's harping on it. They have to be feeling it as well. They do as well, even though they got to be one play, forget everything else. They know what's happening out there. They know that they have quarterback issue. So they got to help these QBs any way they can. John talking about the injuries. Both persistent and Hinton, and I believe more are back. All right. Maybe. Scott declaring that Tuttle will lead Michigan to a big win over Illinois. A-Train says it's coaching 100%. Well, the coaches are the ones that are evaluating the players, and they're the ones that are putting out there. So I'm not going to argue about coaching. And Andres is talking specifically about Orji. If they really wanted to have him, they needed to change everything. I agree with that. John was saying Percy, he was doing a talk to text, and that's why he came up with both persistent instead of Percy. Okay, I get it now. All right. Andre says, give Orji to Urban Meyer. He'd figure it out. Yeah, not necessarily. Hadley says, do you really think this time the defense can play 4 quarters of decent football? They need to win this game. Well, good point, Hadley. It's great to see you in here. I hope you enjoyed that Tiger season. I know you did up until that Grand Slam. Let me tell you something about the second half of the season, because I'm going to get there, and that's my point. If you want to see a picture of the new Michigan basketball coach down here, going to be in action coming up on Sunday down at the Little Caesars Arena. And hey, you want to see Dusty May? You want to hear more about him and football and everything going on? Join the Maize and Blue Review today. You do that by going to michigan.rivals.com. We would like to see you over there. And, well, that's not happening. Let me see the things that I wanted to see in the second half. Here they are. The rest of the season. Hadley, I think I've seen the defense play good first halves. Fresno, they played a good half, not against Texas, unless you want to say they played good in the second half, but I wouldn't really buy that. But USC and Minnesota, they played well in the first half. And do I really think that they can put 4 quarters of football together? I don't think they can put 4 quarters of championship football together, but I think the hard part is we're comparing them to last year or the defense these last 3 years, which were championship defenses. This one is not. And what happens with most defenses in college football, I'll even take you to this past Saturday in Oregon. You had Ohio State and you had Oregon. These two teams, if you said, hey, these two teams are going to, definitely make the college football playoff, though one of them or both of them will be in the Final Four. I don't think you would get too many arguments for anyone. And yet, the defenses were getting worked over left and right. It used to be prior to Michigan the last couple of years of like bringing defense back, making defense sexy again. Defenses, you can give up a lot of yards, you can give up plays, but then you need to make a play, turn the ball over, come up big in the fourth quarter for your team. That's what this team hasn't done that. And then they also haven't been able to put four quarters together. I think they have the capability with some of the individual star players. We've seen like Will Johnson. He won the Fresno State. He had the big pick. I don't know about winning it, but he had the big 86-yard interception return. We saw him have the big interception against USC. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Come up with the big turnover. Derek Moore has that capability. Josiah Stewart. We know about Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. We've seen that. They've got some of the ability to create some turnovers. And to me, I'm not, thinking about 4 quarters of championship football. I'm thinking about making some plays and in winning time to be able to help this team out. That's the way I look at it. Anyways. We'll take a couple more here on the feedback. Rico says he thinks Warren and Orji were both throwing a ton of picks in practice, which is why they didn't know who to start. Orji sees Warren get pulled for the same picks, both threw in practice. Well, your guess is as good as anyone. My point is that you needed to be decisive and make the call for the team on the opening week. When you tiptoe into game week, if that what you're saying is true, you're not getting a lot of good play out of the quarterbacks, and you're like, man, we're just going to keep firing away. Uh-oh. No, you set the date, and then you make the pick. But, that's me. That's, I've said that a million times now. So, that's it. Couple more. CJ, the DJ. All right. He says they didn't put him in position to win. The OC never wanted him to play quarterback, in my opinion. Well, you start getting into that kind of stuff. Kirk Campbell, first-time offensive coordinator, first time up on the horse at a major college football program, and he's going to pick a guy? Or he's not going to put everything behind a guy because you're saying, he didn't want him to be the quarterback? You got big problems then. Like, the quarterback position is the toughest to evaluate. It's the toughest to recruit. We see it in the drafts all the time. These guys that come in and they pick, their boss left and right. That stuff all happens. And so that's the way I'm thinking that what happened here. When you start thinking about, he didn't like him. You didn't like him? Millions of dollars at stake and everything else, and he never wanted him to be the quarterback. And, this is a staff for the first time. You're in trouble when that kind of stuff creeps in. CJ, the DJ, but, I don't know. Working against each other. And even if you didn't want him to be the quarterback, and so if he didn't want him to be the quarterback and he was the one that picked Davis Warren and then they went to Orji, are you thinking he sabotaged him? So these are the things. This kind of stuff happens with fans when you start losing. They start making things up. Like Kirk Campbell sabotaging things, or actually you didn't say that, but when you say they didn't put him in position because they never wanted him to be the quarterback, and it's his job, and his ass is on the line, and millions of dollars in the future of the possibilities when it's the first time that he's playing. Why? I would just want to know why. I don't get that part. Maybe you can answer that one for me. Why they would do that. Kirk is asking why Kirk would purposely try to lose his job if he preferred a different quarterback for his playbook. It's absurd. It is absurd. And if they were going even before spring started and Campbell didn't like him and he thought, if it was me and I knew everything that I knew now and I was in spring, I would say, Sharon, this experiment's over with Orji. He's not a quarterback. We need to bring somebody in. These guys, these are the two that made the decision. Sharon Moore and Kirk Campbell. The biggest decision that you can make with a football team, the quarterback room. You've got the head coach, you've got the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback coach. Those two collaborate on the quarterback room. And so if the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator never wanted him in there, we got a big story. Now that they didn't perform and it didn't work and they should have put more of an offense catered to Orji, that's always the problem. That's what I feel like when Urban Meyer's up. Oh, this is the greatest thing. You got a guy that totally does one thing, and then you got a guy over here that totally is different. Boy, this really confuses the defense. It also confuses the offense. It also confuses the offensive line. It also confuses the coaches. It also doesn't work well when you're practicing. One practice, you're practicing for a guy that's a runner, and the other one, you're practicing for a guy that is a thrower. And then you're trying to play both sides. You're going to play a little bit of one, and then you're going to play the other one. Get out of here with that. And look, so Urban Meyer, Urban Meyer's a great coach. He's the only one that's been able to do this. And oh yeah, he had the greatest college football player ever in Tebow, who was the one that's doing it. And the other one, Chris Leak, was a senior and wasn't half bad himself, who ended up leading him to a championship. So trying to duplicate what Urban Meyer did. No, hey, Urban Meyer did it. Look at Urban Meyer. They're on Saturday talking about what a great job or how dangerous Michigan is because nobody knows what they're doing. Yeah, that's the point. Nobody knows what they're doing. All right. I didn't tell myself, hey, let's go in here and let's not yell about anything. Let's look forward to the second half of the season. Let's go on to Saturday and let's see. Keep it simple. Let's have a decent passing game and low turnovers. That's going to help the defense out and to just kind of get it back on point here for the rest of the season. I can't think about. I watched Oregon and OSU play. And my thoughts in that game was that Michigan's not going to be able to stay on the field with either of those teams. But look, for the second half of the season, it sounds silly when you have 6 more games to say, well, this is a must win. But if they don't win on Saturday, the thought about can this team get bowl eligible this year comes into play. And that's not a lot of fun. So, hey, jokes about, Quickie Lane Bowl or Weed Eater Bowl, those are fine, but not being a bowl eligible, that really does come into play if you don't get a win on Saturday. You need to get a win on Saturday. And let's see a win on Saturday and beat MSU. These things are 2 achievable items. With everything that's happened, whatever you think about the coaches, either side of the ball, position coaches, position groups, they're not doing the job. Nobody's doing it, whatever you think. If they can get a win on Saturday and beat MSU, these are 2 things, despite everything that we have seen and talked about in the negative sense, that they can do. And then we're talking about, all right, let's see where they can go from there. Let's see if they can get up and win 2 games that they're going to be favored in before we start talking about Oregon and going on the road to Indiana and down to Columbus. 2 games. You want to just talk about 1? That's fine. I'm looking at 2. They can win them. They're going to be favorite. And let's see them go out there and do it by having a competent passing game That's going to help everything. And let's see them keep the turnovers down. Force a couple if they can. That's all. That's how I'm looking at it. Okay. Woo! Now, Rico's just trying to get me mad now. Rico wants to talk about Ward. We want to talk about Kyle McCord. He thinks Ohio State would win against Oregon if they had Kyle McCord. Because what, he would have slid down with a second or two, and so they could have kicked a field goal in that case. I don't know. Still would have been a pretty long field goal. I don't know about that. To me, let's see them go out and get that victory against Illinois. They can do it. If Illinois would have just blasted Purdue like I was thinking they should have, I would be thinking like, man, this is a game that but Michigan, they can win this one. And they just have to keep the turnovers low, force one or two, and I think it can all come together. A competent passing game can help everything, including you watching the game. It's going to help you as well. I'd love to see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. We're over there talking about Michigan and the game coming up on Saturday. And then, oh, yeah, before you know it, I'll be diving into Dusty May's basketball team because hoops is right around the corner. I mentioned on Sunday, there is an exhibition game down in Detroit. First look at Dusty May's Wolverines comes this Sunday down in Detroit against Greg Campy and Oakland U, one of the darlings of the NCAA tournament last year. Now they don't have their two stars, but it'll be fun anyways to see what they look like. All right. Thank you, A-Train. We will we'll see you coming up on Friday. Maybe we'll see you down Sunday down in Detroit. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button. We enjoy you when you subscribe and you leave comments, all those things, rankings, ratings, all of it. So long, everybody. Have a great day.